Hey guys, so as I expected after the Matt Flynn trade, the Seahawks have indeed focused their attentions on getting a backup quarterback, and the usual suspects have been trotted out, and we've taken a look at some guys that I expected us to take a look at, and we've taken a look at some guys that I wasn't really thinking about, didn't really expect. So the first guy that we actually did sign, this is a guy we actually now have on our roster, is Josh Portis, who was, I believe, the third stringer last year, and we've re-signed him now. I think he's been on the team a couple of years. He only has ever played in the preseason, but I like it. I don't know if I want him to be the second stringer, but he is a somewhat mobile guy who could somewhat emulate what Russell Wilson does if something happens to Wilson, because that's the key. We can't have Russell Wilson out there running the offense, and if he goes down, we put in, Ryan, a Ryan Fitzpatrick or a Ryan Lindley type, guys who aren't physically capable of running the same offense. You want somebody with enough mobility and escapability to at least do some of what Russell Wilson can do in, terms of the ability to escape the pocket and escape pass rushers. So Josh Portis is fine. I'd like to keep him around as a third stringer in case the worst happens. But we've also brought in some guys that it looks like we're not going to sign, but we did at least consider them shortly. Vince Young was one name that was thrown out, but as quickly as he was thrown out, the team went, we don't want Vince Young. And I agree with that. He kind of can do what Russell Wilson does. He's not nearly as accurate as Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's a very accurate player. But Vince Young has a very strong arm, so he can maybe emulate some of the deep ball ability that Russell Wilson has. And he's obviously very mobile and very hard to sack like Russell Wilson is, so all that's great. But with Vince Young, with his emotional issues, his personal issues, the things he's recently done. I mean, the last time I've seen Vince Young play, he was throwing 4 interceptions up here in Quest Field, not last year, but the year before. And I think he's just kind of broken right now, so I don't want to mess around with that. The other guy we brought in, the big splash potentially, was Tim Tebow. And now it's looking like we're saying, oh, we don't want Tim Tebow either. And I was really torn on this because Tebow, he is wildly inaccurate. I mean, you're talking about somebody who can barely complete 50% of his passes most of the time. He's nowhere, not even half as accurate as Russell Wilson is, which is a big thing. But if you look at the other things, they're a little similar. Tebow, basically all he has is the deep ball because he's not accurate. So when he completes a pass, it has to be a big play. Russell Wilson has a very good deep ball. And both are difficult to sack. They're good at eluding pass rush, and they're good at, running the ball. So we could run the zone read with Tebow if Russell Wilson got hurt. So that's appealing. But my problem is this team has a lot of spotlights on it right now. We have a lot of attention from the rest of the league. And there are players on this team that, a lot of people know and a lot of people don't like. Like, I get the sense the league does like Russell Wilson. He's a good guy, a hard worker and all that. But, Richard Sherman, he's on, he obviously runs his mouth, and I don't have a problem with that. But a lot of people, he's kind of a guy you love to hate. We have Golden Tate. We have, to some extent Marshawn Lynch, but a lot of people do like Marshawn Lynch. Bruce Irvin, I think, could turn into a guy that a lot of people love to hate, so to speak. Cam Chancellor, maybe, because he's a big, hard-hitting safety that will pick up some flags over the course of a season. And I don't think we need more attention. I don't think we need to bring in a guy who ESPN and NFL Network and pundits like that will just endlessly talk about for no reason. We don't need a bigger distraction. We don't need Skip Bayless on First Take every morning talking about how Tim Tebow should start over Russell Wilson. But the main thing with Tim Tebow is the number one reason why I wouldn't want him, and it looks like we're not going to get him, is simply from what we have seen from Tim Tebow, either he plays all the snaps or he plays none of the snaps. If you're going to say, okay, we're going to give him 10 snaps a game, we're going to give the starter 50 snaps a game, we're going to split it up like that, and we're going to see what Tim Tebow can do for 10 snaps, it doesn't work. If Tim Tebow's going to play, he needs to be a full-time starter, and that's just the way it is. So if we bring Tebow in, he might say, well, I want some snaps, and then, we'd have to say no, and is that going to be a distraction? Or we might say yes, and that could mess up everything we have going, because I don't want to give away any of Russell Wilson's snaps. I want Russell Wilson to take every snap that he can. I don't want this dual quarterback system with Tebow. And I'm a Tebow apologist. I'm not a Tebow fan, but I think Tim Tebow brings a lot to your team in terms of the way their offense can run. I mean, if you have Tim Tebow as your starting quarterback, you're almost guaranteed to have the best running attack in the league because of what he does to defenses. But I don't think he's right for this, so that's my thoughts on the Vince Young and Tim Tebow stuff. It's appetizing because physically they're close to what we need, but mentally they're not good for us, which is unfortunate. But the one guy that I've seen be thrown around that I really want to bring back to Seattle to be our backup quarterback is Seneca Wallace. He was here a long time as a backup to Matt Hasselbeck. He started a lot of games. He won some games. He played fairly well in some of those games. And Seneca Wallace probably looks at Russell Wilson and thinks, that is who I could have been if I was, better. But they're both small quarterbacks. They're both very mobile. They're both capable of scrambling out of the pocket. Seneca Wallace isn't accurate, but he's not inaccurate to the likes of Tim Tebow, for instance. And I think he knows it here. He doesn't know this system because he hasn't been here for a few years, maybe, but he knows the city. I think the fans like him. I think the fans think he's a quality backup. And if we could get Seneca Wallace to back up Russell Wilson, I would feel really good about our quarterback position. If Russell Wilson gets hurt for a quarter or a half, I think Wallace could come in and do okay. Obviously, if he gets extended for, weeks or months at a time, then the season's screwed no matter what we do, probably. So there's nothing we can do about that. But I think if we could get Seneca Wallace in, that would just be ultimate. So that's my thoughts. See you later.